Alright, so here's my pedal board that I am taking all the cables out, and I really wanted to streamline this board, and I knew the Quilter Interblock 45 would give me everything I needed as far as an amplifier in a small package that will sit right on the board. So I didn't really need the additional overdrives because the HX Effects would supply everything I needed for that. Don't need the one spot power supply because it's kind of pointless just to power the HX Effects with that one power supply. Now if you're using different pedals along with the HX Effects, it might be a good idea to keep that on there, but for me, I'm just going to use the stock power supply that comes with the Interblock and the HX Effects. And yeah, it's going to be two separate cables that I'm going to need to power this board, but you know, it's really not a huge deal. I normally carry my little power strip anyways. So I'm just unscrewing the power supply, taking that off. Still an excellent supply. I may use it later down the road for something different, but for now I don't really need it. You can see I have a lot of dual lock on the board. Just kind of experimenting with placement right now, making sure all the ins and outs are where they need to be, and nothing's getting in the way of the power supply or cables or anything. I am going to be using the 4 cable method with this setup. It's great because I can just use the patch cables here, and they're long enough to where they can reach, so I don't have to make additional cables, which is really cool. So now I'm just cutting some dual lock to go on the bottom of the Interblock 45, and so that way it'll stay on the board nice and snug. It's not going to come off, and you can actually reuse dual lock for the most part. They retain their stickiness pretty well, so I just peeled it off of a different section of the board and then cut it in half and stuck it back onto the bottom, and worked pretty good. Now I want to make sure that my cable routing is nice and clean, so the longer cable that I was thinking to use for the output of the HX Effects into the return of the Quilter, I actually reversed that and used it for the send side of the Quilter, and that seemed to work out pretty good. And I am using little blocks there on the bottom, so that way I can attach all the cables and have them nice and snug, and that way they're not going to be loose and jiggly around the bottom of the board when I go to lay it down on the floor. So now I'm trying to figure out the actual placement of the Quilter power supply, and I was going to be using this dual lock, but what I found out was the thickness of the dual lock actually makes it a little too big. Alright, so I ended up changing my mind on the dual lock, and I'm only using some cable ties to hold down the Quilter power supply underneath the board, because the extra thickness of the dual lock made it sit too high, and when you flip the board over, it doesn't lay flat along the floor. So you just kind of have to experiment with these things and just kind of figure it out as you go. But the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So, and you'll remember the next time around, it's like, oh yeah, this didn't work out, so I'm just going to use cable ties. I really like using cable ties. It makes everything nice and neat underneath the board. And especially using those little cable routing system, little sticky things. I don't know what you call it. But I'm going to have all the supplies that I use for this build in my in the description of this video, so that way you'll have links to Amazon. You can click on that link and then order it yourself. And when you do that, you do get you do help me out a little bit with my channel, being an Amazon affiliate. So yeah, just sticking down the little cable router pieces there, and keeps everything nice and snug. And they're very easy to use. You just peel off the backing, stick it down where you want it, put 1 or 2 cables in there, however many will fit, and then just snap it down. So now when you flip the board over, it's very easy. You can see everything lays nice and flat. And I'm going to plug in the power supply. And here's a stock HX Effects power supply. It's kind of big, kind of weird, but it's not going to be a huge deal because I use a power strip anyway for most of my live setups, just in case I need multiple outlets in one area. So now just 1 cable going to the guitar, from the guitar to the HX Effects, and then I plug in the speaker cable, and 1 cable going to the L6 from Mission Engineering for my whammy and wah and volume pedal kind of stuff. And there you go. You can hear it sounds really good. Everything blaring through the 2x12 cab. It's got a vintage 30 and a greenback. And it's just a very small, complete setup. You have your amp, you have all your effects. If you want to go line out to the mixing board or front of house, you can do that. If you want to go to a cab, you can do that as well. And it's great. Alright guys, I am Dr. McFarland. I will see you in the next video. Keep rocking. Hey, wait a second. Before you go, be sure to check out the description down below. There's a lot of really cool links. And definitely be sure to check out my website, drmcfarlandstudios.com. See ya.